What's up, people? Welcome to another episode of I Am Negan, a TWD Universe podcast. My name is Adam Vale. I'm a senior editor over at the Koalition, and I'm joined by editor-in-chief, Richard Billy Jr.,
What's up, Adam? What's up, listeners and viewers?
and Throwdown's Carlos Romero.
Yo, what's going on?
What's going on is this is it. We're at the halfway point for The Walking Dead, Dead City, Episode 3, People Are a Resource. And before we go any further, again, this is a spoiler discussion. So if you haven't watched the episode, go on AMC Plus. You can watch it there or just watch on AMC proper when it airs on TV. Because we are going to just really go into this and just our thoughts going forward. Because I have a lot of words. Got a lot of thoughts on this one. Oh boy, this is getting me. This is getting me.
Is this good or bad?
I don't know right now. We'll see. So if you're new, that's what we do on this channel. If you're already experienced and been here around for a few years, then you already know what to expect. Thanks again for all the support over on iTunes, Spotify, of course, YouTube, and Koalition proper. But with that all out the way, let's get into it. 3, 2, 1, boop. This, man, I want to like this show. Okay? I do. And some people are like, well, you're biased, the whole Walking Dead, you're all in. Yeah. That's true. But then we've had some bad ones. World Beyond, that was rough. Tales from the Walking Dead, forgettable. And so we were really hoping for the best with this, especially how Fear is just falling off a cliff. Well, there's a lot of hope that Dead City, and of course the Daryl Dixon that's coming, and then the Rick and Michonne, that there's hope that one of these spinoffs can stick. And I was really hoping Dead City would stick, and something about it doesn't feel right. I don't know. It's still early, but then it's not so early because there's only 6 episodes in this season, and we're at the halfway point. So as much as, man, and all right, so just so we can get started, this is one of the things I was bringing up. So if you've watched this episode, you already know there's a lot of flashbacks. So what we're going to do to simplify it, we are going to follow each story separately from beginning to end, as opposed to going along with the show and just flipping back and forth because it's just too much. It's too much. So we're going to start off with Jenny's story from beginning to end of this episode, and for a reason. And it's because our fortune teller over here, Richard Billy Jr., called it. He called it last episode that, she's going to find her way back to New York. She's going to find, I'm like, how? How is that possible? She was just put on this wagon. She was sent off. Now, Richard mentioned someone in the comments over on YouTube had brought this up, that maybe there's Washington, D.C. I think if you recall from when Negan was talking to Maggie, he was like, you still have everything set up like that for kids and stuff at Hilltop? And she said, yes. And then when Jenny did get over there in the last episode, the teacher introduced her to the class as someone that's from Oceanside. So I'm just putting that together, thinking that that's why. I know you said that the person in the commenter said that it was DC, and I think that DC most likely is New Babylon. But the point is, either it's New Babylon or if it is Hilltop, how did she just get on a motorcycle? And either way, all right, so DC to New York, that's 3 to 4 hours by car. Okay. And you have to, it's a trip. Well, she did this on a dirt bike, if that's where she was coming from the DC area. And then we know Hilltop, if I'm remembering correctly, that's like Georgia. Right? Wasn't that it? Somewhere outside of Georgia, or was it Baltimore? It was somewhere within that area. But that's still even further. So I just, man, that didn't fit with me. And that's why when Rich brought it up, it's like, she's going to play a part. I was like, yeah, she's going to play a part. But I figured that they would, Croat would figure out the connection with Negan. And it's like, maybe he still has some people over at that location. And I'm like, there's some new girl that just showed up. And bring her. I could have never imagined, just because of the distance, and she's a mute right now. She's not talking to anybody, and that she's good with geography and could get on a bike and just. I mean, what, she took the highway? Come on now, like, how is she doing this? It doesn't make sense. It's not logical, but here we are. We see that she had the flashback scene where we see that it was her and Negan doing their trip, and then I guess somebody tried to rob them in the middle of the night, and she went looking for them, and the whole thing was a little dinosaur tour. But the meat and potatoes of that isn't. We see that she's on the dirt bike and she shows up at New York. Rich, how did you know? How did you know?
Very simple, because they told us the backstory between the Croat and Negan, and the fact that there was a kid involved. That's all of a sudden when Negan, he decided to try to get some revenge on the Croat. So I knew they did that as a foreshadowing to let you know, okay, now we're going to come to a point where the Croat is going to get his hands on Ginny, and it's going to be basically history repeating themselves. But obviously, nothing will happen to that character because we know Negan will save her. But that's why I knew eventually they were going to find a way to get to that point, because they told us ahead of time where they were going with that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, but it just didn't make any sense. I'm like, how is she going to find her way here? Unless I was thinking maybe there's a caravan that's going back and forth to New Babylon or whatever location for supplies. She overhears it and then just like a stowaway, sort of like what I think it was Carl that pulled that off and Walking Dead proper in one of the seasons. So, but still, this doesn't make. Man, when I saw that, part of me went to rage quit, man. I'm telling you, being honest, part of me was like, I can't do this. I can't believe this is where we're going with this.
Well, I fully understand it, and I understand that the showrunner explained that the whole story with her and the flashback and how he made the connection of, well, this is why she has to get back to Negan. I just like, whatever. This is for convenience, in my opinion, but it is what it is.
Yeah, you're right. It is what it is. It would have been better if they cut that part out from the first episode with the whole hilltop thing, because now I'm confused if that's really where she went, because I still think that's too far. If they would have just said, hey, we're staying in this neighboring area, there's a good school here, whatever, you're going to stay here, this is Negan talking to Jenny, and then I'll be back. Then it makes sense, because then maybe she can, we'll have a scene where she like looks out the window and go ahead, just do a quick cut that it overlooks the city, from a distance. So she knows she's not that far, and she knows Negan isn't that far. And then it plants the seed that it's a possibility because she can see it. Yeah, it's a trip, but it's within sight. No, getting on this dirt bike and going on this trip by herself. Oh, and then to put her on a little rowboat and have her go across the harbor, no, that's it's a hard one. It's a hard one for me to swallow, and
Well, there's another explanation, but I will wait until we get into the other rest of the stories, because it's all connected. But I know why they did this, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's. How about Carlos?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Carlos, what did you think of that?
Well, I didn't mind it as much but to be fair, it's because it's just a trope from every Walking Dead spinoff now, where they do teleportation left and right. It's like the logistics of everything doesn't make sense. Characters who are still very young are going from one what seemingly is one side of the country to the other. Because like you mentioned, we don't know if she was in DC or in Georgia or who knows. And it's just one of those things where Walking Dead just doesn't do a good job at relaying the sort of that traversal for people. And it's a 6-episode series, so they're gonna zoom through a lot of stuff. It sucks because we just met these people like 2 episodes ago, so One episode we meet them. The next episode they're at school. The next episode they're going back into to save Negan's behind in New York. So it's just going from one point to the other at the speed of light.
Yeah, and then
So,
go ahead, Rich.
I just want to make one comment before you continue. I just want to say this though, even though I am not really a fan of the Ginny character, the actress that's playing her is definitely very good at playing this character.
Or someone that's mute, and yeah, because she's definitely using her expressions to speak.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if she actually is mute in real life, but I'm just saying she does a very good job. Unlike another actress that plays a character on another Walking Dead show that we have spoken about, so I have to give at least the actress credit for really doing a good job with the role.
Yeah, and that's the question with all of this is, and we're still sticking with her whole segment on this episode, is that we see a lot of little back and forth conversations with Negan while he's explaining that it's been months. He's been with her for months and she hasn't said a word. And he even teaches her his iconic whistle. He does the whistle and he's like, listen, at least can you do that? And she can do the whistle. And he was like, great. All right. Because she refuses to talk. And it's funny because he starts talking like, hey, if this was another time, we would have a doctor that could help you deal with your issues. But we don't have that time right now. This is all about survival. You got to just, because it looks like that whole time she's just stuck to him like glue, like he had mentioned, until she lost her a dinosaur puppet toy, and it turns out that the guy that was a walker that they opened in this episode that attacks is really the one that was trying to rob them, and Negan had taken care of that, and poof, whatever, he got the dinosaur back. But right there, that was planting the seed of why she is doing this, because she has to be with him. Because remember, she did that big hug in that scene. And it's like, all right, well, she's not talking, but she's very good at showing expressions with her face. And poof, there she goes. She shows him, she hugs him. It's just showing, I appreciate what you're doing. You're my caretaker now. I want to stand by you. But man, this is just, it's still too far-fetched to just say, yeah, you're going to travel from wherever on this bike, then take a boat, go across a harbor to the city. And where you're going to go. How are you going to find him? Did he tell you where? I mean, the only thing I can think of is that she's going to look at the smoking building. She is going to end up at the Croat. She's just going to walk in, because where else is she going to go? Right? She doesn't know anywhere else. It's just unbelievable. I know some people are like, it's a Walking Dead. None of yeah, I get it. But at some point, it was believable. It was like a what if? Yes, it's kind of far-fetched with rabies type of thing infecting people 28 days later style, maybe whatever, but still people surviving, trying to figure out how to survive and to how to deal with others, and the whole tribal aspect. That's real life. We've seen that happen in other locations in other parts of the world that are dealing with situations now, and especially in the Middle East. But I can't, and it just, I don't know why. I'm sorry. I'm even keep dwelling on this because it's really bothering me with this Jenny character, that she would do all this. And then what? So my question to you guys, and then we're going to move off of the Jenny, because that's why I want to do this part first, because it's also pretty short. We see her walking down the streets of New York and there's walkers everywhere. She also doesn't scream, which I found interesting as well. She doesn't even make a gesture of a scream. She just like moves around. And it's like, all right, whatever. Because remember, one grabbed her by the leg, the ankle, and it's like, whatever. She's still not gonna call out or anything. She's okay with this. So she's experienced around walkers. And then now that the people that we saw, well, the person that we saw, was that just a scavenger, or was that one of the Croats guys?
Wait, what?
Remember when we saw that part with Jenny when she's hiding, and then we see that it looked like it was just like a scavenger, a guy with a hood or a bunch of stuff with him, and then he kills the walker and picks it.
It was the lady, and she showed up with the group.
Like it right really after. Was her? Shit, I didn't even pay attention. I thought I saw, and I was like, well, maybe she's part of the tribal. That's the one that's with Tommaso.
Yeah, well, I don't know if
Yeah.
she's part of the group or she's just a friendly. I don't know if
Okay.
we got that deep on their
Yeah.
relationship, but she was obviously friendly to the group.
Oh,
But she could have
because
been.
that's the one. Yeah, she shows up at the end of the episode, and she has an item that was Jenny's, right, from that scene there when she fell.
Yep, picked up the what was it, the dinosaur.
The dinosaur, yeah, the banged up dinosaur. Now Negan didn't see that, because if he
Nope.
did, then he would definitely know.
Well, since you mentioned it, I'm just going to mention what my whole thought is about this, and that is that the more I watch this show, I realize this show was just created to really build upon the tension between Negan and Maggie. Because obviously Maggie saw that dinosaur, so she knows that Ginny is there or she's nearby. And at the same time, she didn't tell Negan this information. Meanwhile, Negan did something in this episode that's going to impact the entire group. And obviously, this is going to impact their relationship with that group moving forward. So and obviously you saw Maggie looking at a drawing of Glenn in this episode as well. They have this whole thing where, as a viewer, you're going to ask, can they coexist and work together, or is it impossible? And it feels as though that is the premise of this entire show, because there's no reason why they should still have issues with each other, but they creating other issues by not communicating and being honest about what's actually happening. So that's where I see that things are going. They're going to have another confrontation before this season is over, because obviously she knows that Jenny is there. She didn't tell Negan, at least not in this episode, right? So if something happens to Jenny and the Croat catches her, Maggie's going to be like, oh, well, I knew that she was here. If she was here, that's going to create an issue with Negan. So that's why I said, let's see what happens. But I can see that was the premise of this show. They told this showrunner, we still need to maintain the tension between Negan and Maggie. And that's pretty much it. But it is your idea of whatever you want to do with the storyline. But we need to keep the tension between these two characters, because that will make people want to watch.
Do they really? I mean, it's like a rubber band with this whole thing. It's like 1 minute they're like, oh, we're cool, we're working together. We saw this in The Walking Dead. And then it's like, oh, we're gonna split you guys, and now you're still conflicting and having issues. She's still bitter about what you did to Glenn. And then it like closes up again when it's like, hey, listen, I'm looking out for you, I'm gonna help you, this is gonna work. We saw the whole kill thing he did just to prove a point, to strike fear in the Croats guys, all this. Like, okay. But then even now this, like, all right, and we'll just go into this part right before we did with the Jenny part. Yes, she follows that woman that joins a group that eventually pops up. She's a friend from Inwood, and for those in the East Coast, Inwood's uptown. That's like the Heights. That's further up. So that's a trip right there in itself, because it looks like they're downtown. But she follows her. Jenny, at least they make it look like she comes out of the cover, out of that little alleyway, and then runs off. So we could assume she's going to follow her. But at that point, though, and we'll just cover this part, and then we'll leave the Croat and the marshal for the end piece, the sheriff. Is that now we see what's going, like you said, with Negan and Maggie, and they're having some of their heart-to-heart of what's going on. And he wants to help. He's serious about doing this. He convinces that group. They're not all for it. Well, Luther isn't. And then that was like the highlight, actually, because through that whole part, there was a lot of talking back and forth. And I was like, okay, where are we going with this? What's the point? Are we still having these issues? Because he gives the story of she then tells the group, the tribal, about the story of, they're friends. Negan and Croat, they have a past, they have some history. And I was like, all right, that's enough. But no, she goes into more into it, and then Negan sort of gives a story, because we find out that one person was able to escape, and it was Tommaso. And that I had issues with as well, because clearly, as we saw in the last episode, they travel around in groups. They go out there. So why can't someone just, while you're in the group, just slip away, just run off? It's not like you're trapped. It made it seem like he was part of that group and then wanted out, right? that was the whole thing. And he said and I guess they wanted to add some intrigue to it because like it's almost like an Alcatraz situation. You escaped and it's got to be able to come back. How'd you do it? And he says about the tunnel and that there's some old tunnels behind walls, which is true. Down there are some and that were closed off. There's a lot of abandoned subway tunnels in New York that are still there, just walled off. But it was pretty cool with that part. It was like, okay, well, you're bringing up some history and going into that. And it's like, yeah, and this is how I got out. So that's how we can get back in. But then when you see the structure, you see how big it is. Like, I mean, it seems like there could be a bunch of other ways to do this. But again, it was to get Negan to tell the story and how it fell apart. Because he was like, well, this is how the group starts and this and this and that. And then she was like, yeah. And then it all went away. Da, 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 da. And I was like, again, it's that rubber band. Right? It's like now we got to close it up. Now show reminder they got that attention. And it's just, and then the whole part where he finds an item. What was it? It was a hat or something like that for Herschel, and it's like, oh, I know Herschel's into these things, and maybe don't because
the ball cap.
Yeah, the ball cap again, right? And I was like, you haven't seen this kid in years. And you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I think I found his head. Is he into that? I don't know. I just found that a little bit cheesy, But for Luther, when they were discussing the whole process of trying to go in there, and Luther's against it, and that's the big dude, and he was like, no, and your kid is dead, and just say that, and that really took me back because as when we saw him in the last episode, we saw him as he was going to be more of the muscle of the group. But in this episode, it makes it seem like almost he's like the leader, or the overseer of what they do, because just for him to step up that way out of nowhere, because for the majority of the time it's been Tommaso and the girlfriend that have been corresponding and doing the whole thing with Negan and Maggie. He's been in the background. And all of a sudden now, he's stepping up as he's running the show. And then we get that cool scene where he approaches Negan and he says, you and this girl, you're leaving now. It's like, what do you mean we're leaving now? What? It's going to work. We get it. Your people is just like, no. And then he takes that out, the wanted poster. And he's like, you carry around with you, so I guess you like it or whatever. But and he starts reading it off, saying, he's dangerous and he's got above average intelligence and the whole thing, which is kind of funny. And he was like, no, listen, I'm on your side. I know how that sounds, but this stuff going on. The guy wasn't buying it. He's like, all right, I guess we're gonna do it another way. He kills him pretty quick, and that was another future telling that you had, Rich. You saw that coming as well. Did you know it was going to happen so soon in this episode?
Well, I didn't know that Negan was going to be the one to kill him. I figured maybe he would be one of the casualties once they go up against the Croat. But I do want to say this. I think it was a very good decision to actually do this way, because what I thought was going to happen is that we were going to see something we see in a lot of movies and TV shows where the character turns on the group and ends up working with the enemy. Because I thought, okay, well, he knows that the Croat wants Negan, right? So he eventually, maybe he's somebody that actually is working with the Croat, and they reveal that at a later time. Oh, yeah, he brings them to the location, and then he reveals, oh, this whole time I've been working with this guy. So I'm glad they didn't take that approach.
Or spy.
Because, again, yeah. I'm glad they didn't take that approach and they just had Negan kill him. And again, it feeds the purpose of Negan basically having to wrestle with the dark side, because Jeffrey Dean Morgan did say we were going to see the Negan that we know in this show. So you're seeing the dual personality of the character now. So I think that's great. But again, it's going to have very dire consequences, because now when we watch the next episode next week, right as soon as that episode starts, that group better be asking, what happened to Luther? Where's Luther? Otherwise, that will make no sense whatsoever, because obviously he's important to the group. So I want to see what the fallout is going to be from that.
How do you explain it? Yeah. And now, do you think that's going to be a conflict with Maggie? Because I think if he tells Maggie the truth and he says, hey, listen, when everyone's asking, he's like, and it just shows a wanted poster and it's like, remember this? Like, yeah. Well, yeah. Luther found this, and I don't know if he's going to tell her, but I think he should. And if he does, I think she'll be understanding, because this is still, the end goal is still to save Herschel.
Well, here's the problem. I think when they have their argument, because they are going to have another argument, he's going to say, well, I wouldn't have had to kill him if you didn't tell them that I'm actually friends with the Croat. So I could see him, obviously.
Yeah.
At some point, he may not tell her if she finds out, but they're playing this whole thing of they're not being totally honest with each other about what they know. So I could see him not telling her that he had to do it, at least not right away. But that's going to come out when that group finds out. And it's going to be, because again, they have to continue to build upon the tension between those two. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but I'm telling you that they are going to have an argument. And he is going to bring up the fact that, yeah, you told them I'm friends with this guy. So that kind of messed up the whole dynamic of what we were trying to do.
What did you think of that? Because when that part came up, my eyes sort of rolled, because I was like, why? Why are you doing this? Why, is this the time to then say all that? And to bring up those bad memories? It's like, come on now. It's like, let it go.
I know the intent was to tell them, we know that the Croat is dangerous, but this is somebody who is dangerous and can deal with the Croat. That's what her intent was when she said that. But yes, it is going to cause some issues, the conflict moving forward, because now they're going to wonder whether or not they could trust Negan. Once they find out, and I believe they will find out that he killed Luther, that creates a problem with the group. So we'll see what happens. For sure.
Yeah, that's man. So far, what did you think of all of this, Carlos?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the part that I didn't like. Obviously, Rich predicted it. I'm pretty sure there was other reasons why he predicted this that had nothing to do with the actual story.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's mandatory. They had to do that apparently.
Yeah. So I didn't really like that they killed him this quickly. I didn't like that it was Negan that did it. Negan, he wasn't a threat. Like he told him, he told him, hey, just leave.
Yeah.
Like he could have left. Like he didn't have to kill him. He didn't have to do a confrontation.
Yeah, because that was the thing. When he first took it out, I was like, oh, great. Now he's going to say, I'm going to get this collection and this bounty, and I'm going to do this. So you're going to go and lay down over there. I'm going to tie you up. Do something. But no, you're right. He said you two are just going to leave. Just get the step and do it yourself.
If Luther started, initiated violence first, I would have understood it. He didn't. Negan started it. He just, I mean, it was a good proposition. I mean, he found him out. He's like, yeah, you're a wanted man. So you know what? Leave our group. I don't trust you. I don't believe in your plan. Do this on your own. And he killed him. It's like is he bad now? Is he a bad guy? Like,
just to go off of that, this episode did a lot of, like we mentioned, flashbacks. It was filling in a lot of backstory. This would have been perfect to fill in that backstory for the wanted poster, because the first part, I thought, from what we heard, was that he had killed some judicial people, right? That was in the first episode. But then, well, why did he do that? Now, I assumed that it was the people that killed Jenny's dad. But that may not be it, because remember, we also found out a little backstory of where Annie is, his wife, and the unborn baby at the time from Walking Dead, but now baby born, it was a boy or whatever, and that she was attacked on the road by 5 men. And then he went, and the intent wasn't to kill them, but then eventually it sounds like he did. And to help and save them, he put them in a caravan off to Missouri. Why did he stay? I don't know.
By the way, that explanation, that's what was said for the people listening fans who are watching the show. The real explanation is they didn't have enough in the budget to have her will come back. And obviously this will give Negan a happy ending in the end if he does reunite with them. That's what my theory is.
And I was thinking when I heard that, I was like, oh, so you had a son grown up. Why then not just go with the story of like with the mom being attacked and then just have it that she had died and he pulled a Rambo and went and killed everybody that did it. And now him and his son is on the run, and forget Jenny and then just put the son. Or it didn't have to be a son. Just say, hey, that girl is my daughter, and ever since her mom died, she doesn't speak.
That would have made more sense because then it keeps it a part of the family dynamic.
Yeah.
But I
Instead,
guess
they give him a whole new kid.
Yeah, and this is because of how he had that connection with Lydia on the main show. I guess they decided, well, Negan has these connection with the girl characters, so we need to have some other
And
type
Judith,
of.
remember, he had it first with Judith. Yeah.
So that's probably why they did that. But it would have made more sense if it was his kid. It would make a lot more sense without them having to have flashbacks to explain what is the bond between these two characters, because that's his kid, and it's going to just be a totally logical decision that you want to make sure you take care of your kid. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and then that was it. What was that closing scene? I think it was just with Maggie, and she was doing something. I was writing shit down. But did you see anything else on that?
No, she did recognize that the dinosaur.
Oh yeah. That's right. But I don't remember her seeing the dinosaur. It must have been the first episode. When did she see that?
I don't remember that either. I guess it had to have happened. It had to have happened in the first episode. I mean, and then when we had that whole story of the flashback, maybe Negan told her about that as well.
And
I don't know when it happened.
Yeah, somewhere along the line, maybe we missed it, and it was just there. But I'm sure it's if I was her, if I was in that situation, I'd be confused. I'm like, man, how? Wherever she sent this girl, it's far, and it's like, how did she get here? And she's in the city. Did they get raided again? That's the first thing I would think. I was like, oh man, the Croat went back to Hilltop and raided everything again, and just brought all the girls back to do whatever, and that's why she's here. So it's a 2-for-1 mission type of deal. We go in there and then we save both these kids. Do you think she tells Negan in the next episode, or you think she hides it and then all of a sudden he just finds it? Like, how did you get it? And I think that's the other reason why they bandaged it up. Remember, if it was damaged, I was like, oh look, surgery complete. So that way it's not any toy. I mean, how many toys are you really going to find in this situation here? But it's that specific one because it has the wrapping that he put on it.
I think he is going to find that toy. But I also think that
is that when he kills Maggie? Do you think that's when he kills her?
No. That's not going to happen. They're never going to do that. This is the Walking Dead.
It turns into I Am Negan, like instead of Daryl Dixon, because he gets his own show that with a lame name.
Oh no,
we get
that's
a
not
Walking Dead Negan. Okay.
I think the fans will be angry if Maggie gets killed, because obviously she has a fan base, and also people don't want to see Negan get killed. So they're going to find a way to do this where both characters still survive.
Listeners, are you guys fans of Maggie? You just brought that up, and I'm just curious. If you're listeners, go ahead, leave a comment. Who's a fan of Maggie? Maybe
I think Carlos is. He can confirm this when he returns.
Yeah, because that's a question right now. Because the more I watch this, I was like, she's not needed. She's really not needed in this. And they're like, but yay, the whole premise is the mission for Herschel, this the rescue. It's like, and we could have had just Negan do it. She could have just said it. Go ahead, Carlos.
They made her so one-dimensional in this show. It's like she's either the person that just hates Negan, or the person or the I need to save my kid. So, she's one of the main characters, and I don't think they do her justice by giving her, she doesn't get that many significant arcs. I mean, even Negan, we get the backstory with him and Ginny, and the backstory of him and his wife, and him again with everyone else. But with Maggie, it's more like I need to save my kid. And I hate Negan, and I think that's just primarily the lens that we see her in this show, and that's not how we saw her in the original show. At least in the first couple of seasons, she had she was a character that had a pretty good backstory, and she's fully fledged 3-dimensional character and kind of, between then and now, it's kind of was lost.
I don't know. I've fallen off of that whole thing. I was always surprised that they kept putting. It's not the actress. The actress is fine. She's doing a great job. No issues there. We don't have a Mo situation. It's just a character. It's this character. I just don't see it, and especially when they did that whole big part where she had a group, and that was with Snake Eyes and the whole thing, and that fell apart. And remember, this is how they explained her return to the show, to the series after doing the other show for Fox. I figured at that point she was going to be playing a different character. She was more rough and tumble, which she is, but then they do the same thing. I was like, oh, her community got raided again, and now she's alone again. She's got a lot of problems. She needs some new help. Maybe she shouldn't be venturing off running these communities by herself. She needs help. I don't know if it's just her negotiating skills or something is rubbing people the wrong way that's leading to these things. So, so right there, that's at the end. We're going to try to figure this out for the next episode, see what's going to happen. I predict that we don't find anything out with this. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Negan may find out that Jenny's there either because she is with the group or she pops up with the group, the tribal group, or somehow she does get captured by Croat and he's like, what is she doing here? I mean, if they really, right? That's it. I mean, if you really want to spice things up, have it where they're fighting some Croats and Maggie falls to the ground and he helps her up. And when he helps her up, the little toy falls out of her bag. And it's like, wait, what's this? What are you doing? What the hell is happening? I didn't want to tell you. And then he kills her. And then we really got I'm telling you, I did.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Listen, I will be surprised if they actually killed her off the show. I'll be highly surprised if they did that.
They're not going to do it.
I don't see that happening. But I will say this: it would definitely give Herschel a reason to go after Negan because clearly Herschel. The actor that plays Herschel, maybe he's filming the Ghostbusters sequel because where the hell is he at in these episodes?
Yeah,
we saw him in one episode. So
he'll probably be at the end. Yeah, he wasn't in this one or anything. Yeah, we don't see him. We don't see him. All right, so that's a good transition. We're out of this now. Let's go into the Croat. So as last we saw, he captured the sheriff through the trap. And he brought him in. And this threw me off again. I'm like, why? What's the purpose? So the Croat's trying to question the sheriff. It's like, hey, what are you doing here? Who are you with? The whole thing. The sheriff doesn't want to say anything. And we know he knows he's sheriff because he looks at the badge, the whole thing. Right before I go any further, did that make sense? Why wouldn't he tell him? He's like, hey, I'm here looking for a wanted man. Did he think that was going to cause problems with this guy?
That's a very good question. The way I interpret it is that the Croat took him as a prisoner and he was withholding information. So obviously, which is very typical when somebody withholds information, well, we have to torture them. They had to show you how crazy the Croat is for what he wanted to do. That's the only reason why. But I will say this. I wasn't a fan of that because it felt like the storyline with the Croat and the Marshal, it felt to me like it was just dragged throughout this entire episode. They could have got that done in 1 or 2 scenes, but then it was just dragging throughout the entire episode. That's why I wasn't a fan, but I understand why they did it because they wanted to show you how crazy the Croat is and that this guy was not willing to give information until the very end when he tells him, I'm looking for Negan. And then that's it for this episode. You have to wait to see what happens next week.
Yeah, I feel like they were thinking, all right, listen, we got this cool set, which it is a pretty cool set. They had the cage, MMA cage there. They had this whole the awesome lighting. Everything was just looked jam-packed with all kinds of knickknacks. It looked lived in, and sort of he was like, hey, this is my office. What do you think? This whole thing's great. I loved it. Right. But they were probably like, all right, we're gonna have a big fight in here. How do we build to that? I don't know. We'll put the sheriff, right? He's got to do something. How do we get him in here? Why does he fight? And this is it. The best excuse is that he pulls a Jenny and just doesn't speak. And then Croat decides, you know what? I'm gonna make you speak. I'm gonna get you drugged up and put you in here, and you're gonna fight some walkers. But before I jump the gun here, while he's trying to talk to him about it, he's gonna have a meal in front of him. And this also sort of makes sense because he was like, he spits out some music. Did you give me contaminated meat? And he's talking to I guess the server, the assistant that's there, and he tells him to open up his mouth. And he had shown the key before because he's got this the marshal. He's a marshal, right? Marshal or sheriff? I'm blanking on it now.
Marshal.
Marshal. There you go. So we got the marshal, handcuffed, and he puts the key in his mouth, and then he just starts smashing this dude's face. And the dude takes it. He doesn't even try to put his hands up or anything. He's like, I don't know. I'll take it. You're gonna kill me. I was laughing the whole time. So he kills him. And so, all right, now we know there's a reason for that, right? Because the key is in there. And then one of the other backstories that we got out of this one-on-one conversation, that time that he had with the marshal, is that he was a scientist, right? And it's like, okay, and he knows how to turn, he knows how to make gasoline, because wasn't that the other thing? That's how they have gasoline for their vehicles and things like that. He knows how to do that. He goes a little bit into his family life. He had a wife, he had 2 daughters and a son, and they were hiding out in a post office. It wasn't in New York, it was somewhere else. He was hiding out in a post office. He went out for some supplies. It must have been a pretty long trip, because when he came back, he said there was another group there. His entire family was dead, and they were a meal for that other group. Now, he didn't say they were walkers, because at first I thought that's what he was going to say. They were a meal for some walkers. He made it seem like there were some cannibals. Some dudes just showed up and just started eating his family, which is kind of dark. And I was like, oh, maybe he came across that same group that that Rick and them came across. Remember when they were having a barbecue? And it was like they were with the dark rituals and stuff like that, and they were cannibals. They put them in those rooms, remember, in the trough, and they were whacking them on the back of the head and slicing their throats. So, because remember, it's still in that area. And then he said, oh, at that point, he thought of dying, and he just went wandering off until he found a new family, and he found Negan. Well, he didn't say Negan by name, but he said, I found someone, and then I had a new family, and that's the whole thing. So anyway, that's just to get that part of it, because at that point, though, still, sure, Marshall's not talking. So he's got a plan. So he puts him in the cage after he drugs him up a little bit. He had him inhale something. I forgot what drug it was. Fentanyl or something like that. He had him put something in him, which I guess to just weaken him a little more. And he puts the walker in there. But the first one is the dude that just got converted. That just had the key put in his mouth and his face bashed. So Marshall takes him out, but then realizes there's more coming in. And, well, what am I going to do? Oh, well, just got to get these handcuffs. Also, he starts ripping into the guy's intestines so he can get the key out. That was kind of cool. And you see the Croat was like, oh, wow, he's got some ballsiness here, because that takes a lot to rip open anyone's stomach, dead or alive. And then he takes care of business, but then we see something fall out of his boot. He puts it back real quick cutscene to the Croat. So he notices that. And then we're back in the room. Interrogation part 2.
Oh, let me just say something. Let me just say something real quick. This is just my opinion. I call complete BS on using your shoes to beat the hell out of the walkers. Those must be some heavy duty boots to leave that much of a mark in the walkers. I saw that. I said, come on. I laughed. Now, I did laugh. So you didn't hear me because I was muted when I was watching that, but I laughed on that because it's like, come on, bro, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
but that's just my opinion. I think Carlos enjoyed that scene though. He thought that was a well executed way to take out walkers.
I mean, all he had to do was knock him down and stomp him
right there, stomp him on the head, mush him. If there's one thing The Walking Dead doesn't do, and they did this in the comic, and I always wish they brought it up, is to tell the difference from fresh walkers. Because then there is a difference. From the older ones, they're very mushy. They're slow, very slow and mushy, and you can pretty much just pop a head off or just like trip them up and break a kneecap and they fall and they can't get up. And as opposed to ones that freshly turned, they have more strength and muscle. You have to be prepared. You're going to fight with them because they're semi fresh. They're going to grab you. They still have muscle on the bone. They don't ever bring that up. They've never brought it up in this, and that plays a big part. That would have played a big part, and we don't see that. And it's a shame because, like you said, it's like, if not, go ahead, just kick that knee. Guy falls down, kill him. You don't need to take your shoe off and like start bashing him in the head. So, come on. But I get it. It's a new way. I can't recall in any series for The Walking Dead, death by boot. Right? I don't think this happened. So they want to throw something new. Why not? I'm not gonna hate them for it, but.
I didn't have as big of an issue with that scene. I felt like that was probably the best part of the episode, to be honest.
It's a talking point. I was like, oh, they could walk. Yeah. The dude took his boot off. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I haven't seen that. But it felt like this was where they were going for. This is the whole point. They wanted to use this set. They wanted to get the fight scene. At first, when this happened, I was like, this dude is going to pull a Van Damme. He's probably got some sick fight moves and he's a martial artist or something. We're going to see some crazy John Wick style killing. And it's right. And no, that's not what we got. Yeah. Because why do all this? And then just put like one or two dudes. You just fill it up, right? I was hoping they would just open up and just see a bunch of them rushing in, and then it's just like one long track shot, like blah, blah, take the boot, grab the head, bash it into the other dude, while the one's on the floor, take the guy's head and shove it into his stomach. Now his head is in the stomach of the other one, and then step on his neck and that breaks off. I don't know. I'm thinking too much. Grabbing the one head while it was still alive, and then bashing it as a weapon, just pull it like a Dead Rising situation. Just use it, start bashing. But I don't know. That's too much, I guess. The choreography would have been too expensive. I don't know. But that's what I was thinking because of the set. Once you see the octagon like that, you're like, oh, hell's gonna break loose in here. And it was pretty short.
I wanted him to step on the ring, and then that one dude that has the key comes into the ring, and then the Mortal Kombat theme song comes out.
Yeah, like Mortal Kombat. Everybody shaking again, like or at least I was thinking that one of his goons, one of the Croats goons, bringing some, I don't know, like a Mad Max situation, some big burly dude with half an eye or something like. It's like, oh, this is great. Now it's like, you gonna tell me what I want to know, or he's gonna beat you to death. Do something like that, and then that's when he just kills the dude with a boot. Kill that guy too. But I bet you this is not the last time we've seen a fight in the cage. We're probably going to see a few more. And why build this set just for one? Come on.
Yeah, you don't build that set for one, and you don't have the what was, I don't know, his director or the showrunner.
He was hyped for this. Yeah.
He was gushing about this set. They're using it more than once.
Yeah, he even said that the set, those rooms, that was his office. So when you see all the stuff in their papers and all that stuff around them where it looked lived in, that's the one thing I did like. It didn't look like a set, and it's because it really wasn't in a way. It's like this is where they were working at the same time. And then there's like, all right, leave the room. We're gonna film the scene. Oh, okay. It's like, all right, fine. So that's pretty cool. And then we'll just jump into it. This is the second interrogation, and then that's when we find out more of what's going on with him. He's like, yeah, I'm here alone, because Croat grabs what fell out of his boot, and it looks like it's a letter. So what do we know, right? Because we have to go back to episode 1 when he is talking out loud, trying to connect to Maggie, and he's talking about how he's married, he has 2 daughters. He lives on a quiet street or something like that, in a quiet part of town, blah, blah, blah. But from the letter, it sounds like one of his children left and wants to come home and doesn't know how. And then he cuts him off while the Croat's reading it. And maybe that's the other reason why he's on the road or over in New York, at least. Maybe his daughter is somewhere there. What do you guys think?
Curious to what Rich thinks about this.
Well, to be quite honest, I really don't care.
Oh,
Yeah,
snap.
I mean, maybe
I shut
yes.
it down.
I mean, maybe yes, because they have to reveal something else about the character that we don't already know. So I'm okay if they go in that direction, but I really don't care about this character. I just want to see how they're going to get to this whole point of finally Maggie. What's going to happen between Negan, the Croat, and Maggie? That's all I want to see. I don't care about what's happening with all these other people on the show. That's just my opinion.
Because all right, so let's say, I don't know. It feels kind of like a stretch to introduce this part of it because he only came to New York because he was looking for Negan.
Yeah.
Unless this is an older letter and he already went out there and couldn't find the child or something bad happened and he keeps that as a memory type of situation, like just in case, just to keep him going mentally. Don't know. But anyway, he says, hey, listen, I was with 2 others. They already died. I'm out here looking for someone. I was like, all right, who are you looking for? And he says, his name is Negan. And then it's like, oh, his eyes perk up. It's like, oh, it's like, okay. So now that also debunks one of the ideas that we had before is that we thought he knew when he was having that conversation with Herschel that Negan was going to show up or with Maggie. Remember, we were thinking, oh, maybe this was the game plan. Kidnap Herschel. This forces Maggie to try to find some more info of where Croat would be, and in order to do that, he needs help, and then he tracks down Negan, and that's Croat's end goal because he couldn't find Negan himself, but it's clear that was not the case at all, just from the expression on Croat's face. It's like, what? Like, okay, this is new. He's here, and clearly he's going to want vengeance, so that's going to be the fight. That's going to be the big fight, right? But then,
he hears Negan, and then he's like, "Let me tell you about my best friend."
right. Tell you more about this, and maybe then, I'm sure. You know what? You're right. I bet you in the next episode, he tells me, "He's like, you see my ear? You know why it's this pretty? And then goes into the whole thing because that way he could say his point of view.
You want to know why they call me Reverse Dumbo?
Exactly. Yeah. Do you want to know? You want to know why I keep leaning my head this way because I can't hear the other way? You want to know? Oh boy. But it's going to be interesting. But then even with that changes the main focal point and the plot for this show. Because before it's the rescue. And then it's like, yeah, they have some history. But no, there's deep history with this. He shot his ear off and he wanted to kill him, as opposed to the way we heard it from the first episode. It was more of, he was part of the group. He was a wild one. He left. I tried to get him out, whatever. But anyway, the point is, this becomes the main part then. This is what I want. I want to see the conflict. I don't care so much about the rescue mission for Herschel. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait till Maggie saves Herschel and then see how that goes. No, it's we want to see the conflict. We want to see the fight.
It doesn't help that every time we've seen Herschel in every episode, he's kind of like brooding.
Yeah, we've seen him twice, and then that sort of came up when.
Well, not only there, but in the Walking Dead proper, all he did, he always had like a mean mug look to his face.
Yeah, they continued on with it. Yeah, and real quick, that was also part of the little conversation back at the little base, the tribal base, when she was looking at that picture and a part where Negan came up with the hat and all stuff. And she said, "Oh, you know what? I feel bad because during the whole time that they were dealing with the issues with the Croat invading, and she told him to go hide, and he was like, you're always telling me what to do, and you don't give me space, all that type." She basically, the basic teenage drama conflict with the parent was going on, and that was the last conversation she had. She felt bad about it, and it is what it is. But I think this is what my prediction is, that it's not going to be a rescue mission. I think that Herschel is going to find his own way out. And there's going to be some more action going on with that. I don't think that it's going to be one of those where he's sitting tied up on a chair for the next 3 episodes, until the last one's like, oh, you found me. Now let's go. I feel he's going to find his own way, and it's going to cause drama. It's going to lead to Negan trying to save him. and play the hero type, and then that's going to lead to the big fight between the two. And who knows, maybe it ends up in the cage. Maybe I could see Croat holding Herschel at gunpoint, or maybe a knife to his throat in the cage, and it says, Negan, just me and you, get in here, let's finish this. And it's like, okay, he gets in there, they throw Herschel out, and then it's just a fight to the death in the cage. But the point is that the story is built around Maggie trying to save Herschel, but I really think it's going to come down to Negan. So that's again why I keep saying I don't think Maggie was needed in this. She could have just said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you go help me? You know him, you know that city, you know that blah 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 blah. Help. Okay, let me go do it, and then he can deal with all these issues. Because it puts her in a supporting role, is what I'm getting at, and I don't think that was the intent for this. I think there was supposed to be a dual main character type of situation here, and I'm not seeing that. It's always maybe I'm a little biased because, hell, the namesake of the show is I Am Negan. We love Negan, and we're thrilled that he has this show, and they're putting him in a good light, the character-wise. I mean, he's getting great lines, great scenes. Clearly, he's not the supporting character for Maggie on this. So, I don't know. What do you guys think right there? Just the ending. Was that cool with you? The whole thing of the Marshal just name-dropping Negan?
Yeah, I mean, they're finally. It feels like we're kind of getting somewhere. I mean, it's only been 3 episodes, so it's like it's not too bad. But we're trying to figure out what, because the Croat. No one's good in this show, but obviously the Croat is definitely the villain of this show, and the Marshal. I have no clue what they want to make him. The way that he was introduced when he was at that bar was not good.
No, like he's a prick. He's like a bad, almost like a bounty hunter type. Like he doesn't care as long as he gets the job done.
So yeah, so I'm curious to see how that teaming up or whatever they're gonna do between the Croat and the Marshal is gonna be, because like you mentioned, Adam, I feel like the best part of what the show is gonna provide is not gonna be the Herschel Maggie reunion. It might not even be the Ginny Negan reunion. It might be the Croat versus Negan portion of it. So that's the part that I'm looking forward to the most as well.
And I predict that almost everybody in that tribal group is going to die. That's it.
Oh yeah, most of them don't have names.
Oh, it's like, okay. Well, yeah. Remember, there's a whole other group, and Tommaso had said, he's like, yeah, I'm going to tell the others. I'm like, the others? Where are the others? I don't understand that. Like, where are the others? I mean, the only others we ever saw was all the walkers that were heading over to that location when they were playing the music, because they're using them to grind up and stuff. So, that's people are the resource, right? People are a resource. So, with that said, this is it. Rich, before we head out, anything you want to final say? Anything you want to end on the note? Look at that, it's already late. I'm mumbling around here. Anything else you want to say about this final episode here?
I think the episode was okay. I mean, personally, I'm glad it's at the halfway mark because, like I said, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. I think that everything with the Marshal and Croat in this episode, it dragged on to me for far too long. And that's why I said I just want to get to the conflict. I don't care about all these other characters, whatever side stories are happening. Let's just get to this showdown between Negan and the Croat. That's what I want to see.
You know what? You just reminded me of a question I was going to ask you guys. And I think we all pretty much feel the same way. This is going to have an end. This is, what I mean? It's not going to be like, 6 episodes and the Croat gets away and it's like, dun, 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 to be continued. No, we think it's going to end, right? This is it. This is like one of those side spin-offs where there is a beginning and an end. There's no ifs and buts about what's going to happen. And if it comes back, it'll be a different bad guy, but different story. It's not going to be the Croat again.
Yeah. I think it is a definitive ending for this character.
Right. Yeah. And they got to throw some surprises though, because if that's the case, too predictable.
There we go.
Right?
1 hour and 59
You
minutes.
gotta have something.
Yeah.
You gotta have some variable. You gotta have something. Don't tell me. Oh well, you got all the tribal people. Who cares? We were just introduced to them. We don't care. No one cares. Herschel, yeah, why not? You can kill him off. Doesn't matter anymore. Maggie, I'm no, we're not gonna be that lucky. It's not gonna happen. Negan's definitely not gonna die. So we just can't have that. They all survive and they kill the big baddie and roll the credits. It's got to be something else. I want a surprise. I want a shocker. I don't think we're going to get one, but it's been pretty edgy. Of course, there's more cursing, right? Even in this episode, we heard a lot more cursing. So, okay, we're seeing a lot more edginess when it comes to the deaths, which is great because it's not just walker deaths. We're seeing regular human deaths, a lot of crazy human deaths, especially on Negan's end with the slicing of the throat, all that stuff from last episode. Then, of course, with Luther here. It's definitely going darker, and that's great because it's fitting for the series. Walking Dead, the comic was very dark. Anybody could die at any moment, and that's what people loved about the comic, and that's what they loved about the earlier seasons of the show. Expect the unexpected. It was must-see TV because of that. It lost its way, and then eventually went into drama territory of just the way TV is, where it's like all your favorite characters and blah blah blah. But I'm hoping that we get a surprise ending to this, and not just all three of them, Maggie, Herschel, and Negan just walking off to the sunset. All right, well, let's head to Hilltop. No, I don't want that. But you know what? We don't have to wait that long to find out because there's only 3 more episodes left, and then the party's over. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in over on iTunes and Spotify and of course, YouTube, and just checking out the Koalition. We got a lot of interviews with cast members of this show, other shows, movie reviews, game reviews. I mean, there's a lot. You guys already know. And if you don't know, you should know. So thanks again for all the support. It's always great to see people following the show, and especially with these type of shows, the spinoffs, because whether we like them or not, it's still part of the universe that we do like, and that's The Walking Dead. We're still hooked on this franchise until the very end. And who knows, this might be coming sooner than later if all these bomb. Because what's next? We got the Daryl Dixon that's coming in the fall. And oh yeah, we could talk a little bit about that real quick. You guys want to talk about that little teaser trailer? Get that out the way.
Yeah, we can cover that. Not much to say about that since it was just a teaser. We didn't get much story plot. We know that he's in France. We know that he landed in Marseille, which is a city in France. And I think what we talked about previously is that he's headed to Paris.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking a lot of this show is going to be him traversing through the countryside, the hillside.
Or like his video game Death Stranding in live action form.
It's the Stranding, the director's cut live action.
Exactly. There we go. And he gets lost. I mean, that was a funny scene out of this trailer. I was like, all right, we get it. You're doing these drone shots. We're seeing him walk these bridges and just walking around, and we're seeing that off in the distance, the location. Yes, you're not in a back lot anymore in Georgia. This is fantastic. But then you see him up on like this cliffside with a huge drop. I'm like, what is it? He's lost. He is lost. Why are you showing this? I get it. It's just for the scene, the shot, but it was horrible. Because like I'm thinking about it. I was like, oh, well, now he has to walk all the way back because he really hit a dead end off on this cliffside. It was funny. But keep going. You can keep going.
No, that's pretty much it. We're going to see what type of conflict he's going to get into. You guys mentioned it's him trying to go find Rick. So I don't know how the hell he got into this predicament in the other side of the world.
And it looks like he was using a walkie-talkie at the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know what kind of Motorola walkie-talkie or Radio Shack when you have, if you think you're communicating to the people back at the Commonwealth or whatever. But it was like he's talking through this walkie-talkie. Maybe he doesn't know that he's in France. I don't know. That threw me off. Unless that scene is not the beginning.
He's definitely not in
of the
Kansas
first episode.
anymore.
Hey, oh yeah, there you go. Right, it's definitely not in Kansas, unless that's a cut from another part of the first episode. You know what I mean? It's not the beginning of the first episode. Maybe he already knows where he's at. There's a group, they got separated, and they said, hey, we'll meet up in Paris. And that's where he's trying to get to. But the one thing that upset me, and I brought it up, Rich, right before we started recording, for the longest time, you listeners and viewers know, when they first hinted about this show, they were like, oh, well, right now we're just calling it Daryl and Carol, because that was supposed to be the show, Walking to Daryl Carol. And I was like, oh, that's a filler, right? Placeholder for a better name. Well, Carol, they announced she's not going to be on the show, whatever. We may see or may not. But anyway, she's not really a part of the show. And I'm like, well, it's just Daryl Dixon right now. And that's the name of this show. The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. I was like, really? You couldn't come up with anything better? It's like, why? It was a placeholder name that turned into a permanent, and it doesn't do it for me. I don't like it. I guess to me, it sounds very much like in comic form when there's like a mini series, a 4-part comic series, and it'll just drop a name like that. It's like, oh, this is Jenny's story, and it's like, all right, it's 4 parts. That way it's easy to find later on when you're looking up and you want back issues. Oh, I'm looking for so-and-so spin-off. Which one? The Jenny one. Jenny. Oh yeah, that's a 4-part. So when I see that they left it at Daryl Dixon, it seems short term is what I'm getting at. I don't know. To me, it bothers me. I don't like that name. I don't like that it's named after him. Maybe I'm reading too much into it and being picky, but I feel like, hey, you're over in Europe. You could have come up with a better name. You know, didn't you have some funny names, Close, when I brought this up? I think you had some good ones.
Funny names for who?
For the show. Or was it Rich? Rich, did you come up with some? One of you guys,
Rich is more clever than me.
Somebody came up with a cool name for this show. It's like, oh, they should have just called it this. I'm like, oh, you're right.
Yeah, Lost in Paris.
There you go. See, Lost in Paris.
Yeah. Or something else.
You know,
or Lost in
The
Translation.
Walking Dead. There you go. Walking Dead. Ah, we. You know, I don't know. Something cheesy. But I don't know. The Daryl Dixon thing, I just don't like the name. And who knows? I may not even like the show. It seems kind of weird. But what we do know is that they will have the mutated walkers. They've already confirmed that.
Let me now, and that right there, let me just say this right now. That is the fault of the trailer, because obviously this is a teaser trailer. Okay. So they didn't want to show a lot of stuff. But if they would have ended that trailer with the fast walker chasing Daryl, that would have been a great way to get people excited for the show. Because again, we know this because we hear stuff about what's going to be in the show, but they need to show us this stuff as well as the casual people to get them interested. So,
and also we remember real quick, and also we wasted our time watching World Beyond, and that was the final episode.
Exactly.
Right? Remember where they were friends, and they were talking about that they've encountered some new walkers out here, and they're running, and you see the doctor turn and then just run.
Yep. And see, that's why I say, if they really wanted to truly connect it, when they release the official trailer, they need to show that in the trailer. I mean, that's common sense, because otherwise, a person is going to watch this and think, oh, so Daryl just has to deal with the same type of walkers, but it's in a different setting. So they really need to emphasize that, because that's the strength of the show, to say that the walkers have evolved. And so I hope that they are going to do that when they release the next trailer, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and maybe that's what it says in French that was written on the side. Maybe if someone translates that, maybe that's what it says. But that's the whole point of this one. And I really thought, and I could have swore, on the next episode, people, I'll have an answer. I'll look up. I'll do some digging. Because I'm pretty sure they said that we were going to have the mutated walkers in Dead City as well. That going forward, that was going to be part of all the other spinoffs. And that's why they introduced them in the Walking Dead proper final season, to plant the seed, so that way people knew what to expect. That time has passed, and now we have these mutations, and we haven't seen it since. That was it. We haven't seen any of that on Fear. And now we haven't seen in Dead City. We see the walkers still walking around. I don't see them running through the streets, which is what I was really hoping for. And that hasn't been a thing. Hell, haven't even mentioned it. So it's not like, oh no, Adam, you're missing it. They're gonna show it. It's like, no, because they talked to the tribal people, and tribal people, in fact, in this episode, did a quick rundown talking about, when they first started turning, and it happened in the buildings and the streets, and then the military came in, and then they just blew up the bridges. They weren't even here to save us. They would have dropped it at that point, and then the dead started running. It's something, but that only happens downtown or something. I don't know, say a certain part of town on the west side. Those west side walkers are runners. I don't know, but it's clear that that's not going to happen in this one, and it's a shame. It would have been great to see, but yeah, like you said, Rich, that should have been in the trailer. They should have, unless they scrapped that idea. Do you think they would have done that?
I hope not. I hope not.
You bring up a good point, and it's like just like I said, it's like the last time we heard about it, when they did say that was from the world beyond, and that was the link, but we haven't heard about that since.
That'll be a mistake if they did scrap that, because clearly they need to show that. So I don't know. We just have to wait and see.
I don't think there was a backlash from that. I don't think people were flipping out like when on the final season of Walking Dead when they introduced that. And it was like the last few episodes when that happened. Oh man, and it was a shame too, because we were looking for more of that and we didn't get it. So boo. But we'll see. It said the fall, so we got plenty of time to dig up some dirt, see if that's still going to be a thing. And we have 3 more episodes of Dead City. So thanks again, everybody, for the support. And we will be back next week for episode 4. All right, everybody. Peace.
Peace.